Alright, I know you guys have been seeing those winter infographics out there on how to take care of your plants in winter, and they're so freaking confusing because they're like, keep your plants away from the windows, but put your plants in the windows, and they're all like, or they'll die. Just so confusing and frustrating. And then you're sitting there like, how do I keep you alive through the freeze? We're going to talk about it today. So, hello, I'm Lauren, that awkward plant girl. Welcome back to my channel. It's so good to see you guys. Thank you guys for popping in. Today we're going to talk about how to keep your plants alive in winter. We're going to go over 8 different topics today, and we're going to talk about all the different things and give you lots of information. So let's get into it. First up, let's talk about lighting. Plants need light. We all know that. Light is very, very important for the houseplants. It's basically their food and energy source other than actual fertilizer, vitamins, and minerals, right? So how do you get lighting for houseplants? Do they need the same amount of lighting, etc.? Yes, your houseplants need light. Yes, you're going to have to give them more light. You're going to have to substitute because naturally in wintertime, there's just not going to be as much light for them. You may notice dieback with your plants. Totally normal. It happens. If you don't have enough energy to sustain something, something's going to drop, right? So just like with people running around doing everything, houseplants, they can't sustain all these leaves if they're not getting their energy, right? Substitute with grow lights. There are grow light bulbs that you can put in your light fixtures in your house. There are grow light bulbs you can put in lamps and strategically place them around your house. You can also use grow light strips. I use them in a lot of my bookshelves for my terrariums. I also put grow lights right under here for this. Take a look at my various little like vlog videos. Most of those are how I install these. It's just not something that I've thought to make like a separate video for, but if you need that, let me know. So yes, pay attention to the lighting in wintertime, adjust as needed, and expect a little bit of dieback, and it's not that big a deal. It happens. It's normal. You're not a terrible plant parent for it. It just is what it is, and they will happily grow back and probably double or triple new growth in the springtime or whenever they start to get more light. All right, number 2, heating. Let's talk about keeping your plants toasty. Most houseplants that you're going to get are tropical, which means they're going to like high humidity and lots of warmth. So definitely want to keep them toasty. There's a couple different ways that you can do that. I have found that a radiator heater is the best way to do that for me personally. The reason this is because most of the time in the wintertime when you're running your electric heater, it's actually sucking moisture out through your vents. If you get any heaters with ceramic plates, they are more likely to reduce the humidity in the air as well. A radiator heater usually is water-based or oil-based, and they do not eliminate the humidity as much as other heaters do. So if you're trying to heat your plant room in particular, maybe turn off the electric heater to that particular room and try out a radiator heater, see if that makes a difference for you. Another way that you can keep your plants toasty is by getting heat mats. They're also called seed mats, and basically you'll just plug them into the wall, turn them on, and then you put them under your plant pots and they'll warm from the roots up and kind of radiate heat out that way. They won't burn your plants, they won't hurt your plants, they're not like a super fire hazard or anything like that. Perfectly safe. I've been using them for years for specific plants. And that, speaking of for specific plants, there are plants that can handle cold better than other plants. So those are the ones that you want to put in the cold areas of your home. The more tropical plants can then go closer to the heater. So just allocate your space as needed so that your plants are getting the temperature that they need. Make sure you're monitoring the temperature as well, because a lot of times in the wintertime, people will end up making their plant rooms really, really hot. They'll try to put it in like the 80s and the 90s. It doesn't need to be that hot. As long as you're keeping it above the 60s, most tropical plants will be perfectly fine with that. Don't break your bank trying to keep your plants overly toasty if you don't have to. Next up, let's talk about watering. Watering is a bit of a tricky topic because watering in wintertime, you'll see all the infographics out there and all these plant people advising, and they'll say reduce your watering in wintertime. Check your plants. Actually stick your finger in your plants and check your plants. Feel your plant leaves. Like, you do not always have to reduce watering in wintertime. Now for me personally with watering, I have to actually increase my watering for my houseplants in the wintertime because the heat dries out the plant pots. That's the unfortunate thing. So they dry out a lot faster, especially sphagnum moss. It gets so crispy so fast. So I'm constantly up here watering my plants every couple of days. Now, it's not as bad as July when it's 110 degrees in my plant room and all my plants need to be watered twice a day. Like, that's insanity. But it's definitely not the decrease the watering that they push out there. You still need to be watering your plants. most of you will actually have an increased frequency of watering. Now, it makes sense to think that you're going to have to reduce watering because a lot of plants will have slower growth. Wintertime, it's usually cooler, not warmer. But when you take into account heaters and warming up things, heat also rises. So if you're on the second floor, it's going to be toastier up there than it normally would. So those are things to definitely take into consideration. It's going to probably need more water than you would in springtime or fall. Every home is a unique environment. Every plant room is a completely unique environment to you and your particular plants with its own little ecosystem going on. So always make sure that you're feeling your plants, feeling the soil, and actually pay attention to what's going on, because it's not always what people say it's going to be. All right, so the next one's a real hot topic: windows. There is so much information about what you should do with your plants and what you should not do with your plants regarding windows in wintertime. It's absolutely nuts. As you can see here, I have all my plants up against these windows, so I am very much for put your plants near the windows. There is a caveat though, because there are certain windows that are single paned, especially in old homes. If you have newer windows with extra insulation, your plants are going to be fine here unless it's some super subarctic freeze thing going on. I mean, if it's like 30 below zero or something, then yeah, pull your plants away from the window. But typically, if you have insulated windows, you can just put your plants right up against them and it's perfectly fine. It's no big deal. It's not going to hurt them. It doesn't get cold enough to freeze your plants or to do any damage to your plants. If you're really concerned about it, put cold tolerant plants up against the window. Light loving and cold tolerant, just try to get them in front of the windows instead. Mainly the windows to be concerned about, to pull your plants away from, are the ones that are not insulated, that are not double paned, super old house windows that are all rickety with wooden frames instead of the aluminum frames. Those are the ones that you want to be concerned about actually freezing your plants. A lot of times you can tell this because there will be frost and water condensation on the inside of your windows, and that's when you know that it's not completely sealed, that it's not going to be great for your plants to be up against. That's most likely going to freeze. You'll have little Jack Frost icicles inside your house on those particular windows. Those are the ones to be concerned about. Those are the ones the infographics are talking about, tossing out there as general plant advice. Majority of people have windows like this. So if you have windows that get colder or you're worried about a cold snap or something, they actually have like a clear plastic covering you can go and put on. A window insulation is what it's called. Sometimes it's probably going to vary from location to location. I'll try to put a picture here for you of an example, but I've never had to use it up here in my plant room up against these windows for my plants. The heat rises and then these windows are insulated enough. So, but you can use that on your windows if you're really concerned about it. Winterize your house, essentially. And if it's comfortable for you, it's most likely comfortable for your plants. Next, let's talk about repotting and fertilization. There is this myth out there that you cannot repot your plants in wintertime. You can. You absolutely can, because your tropical houseplants are supposed to be in tropical conditions in your home. The conditions are still supposed to stay as close to normal for them as possible. It might be a little bit colder, but it's not supposed to be cold enough that it would damage your plants to repot them. Your plants are not going to thrive in an environment like that. So if you're already keeping your room where it's supposed to be temperature-wise, plants are going to be fine to be repotted. And they're still going to continue to grow. They're still going to need fertilization. There are even plants that have their natural growth spurts in the wintertime. There are plants that grow better in the wintertime and are more likely to need fertilization in the wintertime than they would in the summertime. So the no fertilizing your plants and no repotting your plants thing that they push for the wintertime, just check your plants. Just check your plants, because chances are they're still going to need it. They're still going to use it. I do not stop fertilizing my plants throughout the wintertime. I still sporadically fertilize them just like I do in the summertime. Like, it's fine. They need it still. And should you reduce the amount of fertilizer that you're using? If you were using a super increase of fertilizer in the summertime and now it's wintertime, you should have reduced it from the summertime to the fall time as your plants slowed in growth. So just pay attention to the cycles that your plants have and accommodate your fertilizer. But you should still always be fertilizing, just increase your amount towards the growth period and decrease your amount after. But I personally don't even worry about that. I just give them the same amount of fertilizer all year round and they grow all year round. So next, let's talk about hibernation and dormancy, because there is a lot of myths about that as well. A lot of blog articles out there will push that plants go dormant in winter. It's normal for plants to go dormant in winter. It's normal for your plants to completely stop growing in wintertime. It's not for most plants. There are very few houseplants that are supposed to go dormant. Most of the houseplants, like we've talked about before, are tropical houseplants. They don't have a dormancy period because they grow all year round. It's nice and toasty warm down south for them, so they're always constantly growing. In the wintertime here, the reason plants will go dormant is because it gets too cold and we're not actually meeting their needs. And a lot of them are not supposed to go dormant or stop growing completely because they're not supposed to be in those conditions in the first place. It's a mismanagement of plant care that causes plants to go dormant for the most part. Now, there are some that actually need to go dormant, like a colocasia, for example. Big, leafy, beautiful colocasias, they have these big bulbs. If they have bulbs, they are more likely to need a dormancy period. So there are specific bulbing plants and flowering plants that need a dormancy period. There are specific plants that you would put outside that grow in your natural zone that are going to have a dormancy period. But your tropical houseplants, for the most part, are not going to have a dormancy period. Like alocasia, for example, they're related to colocasia, but they are not colocasia. They do not need a dormancy period. They do not go dormant naturally unless we are not giving them what they need. I live in Washington State. I live in a mountain. I have very cold winters. My alocasias do not go dormant. This is as much light as I'm going to get. Like, this is winter here. So, but my alocasia don't go dormant. It's not that they're in a natural cycle to go dormant. It's that they don't get what they need and things cool down, and then the cold will trigger them to stop growing, which people will call a dormancy, but it's not the same thing. They do not reduce themselves down to a bulb, need to be taken out of a pot, put in a paper bag, and then put in cold, dark storage like a potato, like colocasia do. That's not an alocasia. That's not most tropical houseplants. So if you are concerned that your plant is going dormant, look up and see whether it's supposed to go dormant. Take a look at what these plants do in their natural habitat, and that's going to give you more of an idea of what they're supposed to be doing in your home if you're meeting their condition. Next, let's talk about humidity. Humidity for your houseplants is very, very crucial. Humidity is king for houseplants. It's what causes new growth. It's what helps your plants absorb all the nutrients and moisture through their stomata. If they don't have enough humidity, they're not going to thrive. So that's another reason why you will see a lot of plants struggling in the wintertime. That's another reason why you'll see growth slowing in the wintertime, is because the humidity is reduced. Like we were talking about earlier in temperatures, it's generally our heating practices that reduce the humidity. Also, it could be that your windows are closed now. It might be more humid outside your home than inside your home, depending on what your home is made out of. Definitely take a hydrometer. You can get a measuring device for like $6. It'll measure the temperature and the humidity for you. They have them on Amazon all over the place. So you could take a look at those and figure out if your humidity is above 40% or not. If your humidity is below 40%, it's not good for you or your plants. It's not good for your skin and your pores. It's not good for your plants. They're not going to be able to survive very well and absorb very well. And this goes for cacti as well. Cacti, even in deserts, create their own little humidity pools. That's why you'll see certain cacti like clumping together in deserts. You'll see cacti grow super huge and large. They'll be really thick so they can create their own humidity bubbles. They still need a certain humidity. Now, cacti are a little different than tropical houseplants because they can dry out completely and use their internal water reservoirs. A lot of tropical houseplants are thin-leaved and can't do that. So what you're going to see with tropical houseplants, when the humidity is too low, they're just going to kind of shrivel up. You'll have brown tips, you'll have very slow growth, you'll have leaf droppage, that sort of thing. So you can get a humidifier, you can do a pebble tray. There's a lot of different ways that you can increase your humidity. So measure it and see if that is needed. Another thing that comes with a low humidity is pests. Because your plants are weaker, because they're struggling to absorb nutrients and contain water and be able to do their normal processes, pests that want to eat them are going to come and they're going to settle, and your plants aren't going to be able to fight them off on their own because they're not strong enough because of the lower humidity. A lot of the different types of plant pests, especially spider mites, are very prevalent, and then you'll end up with thrips usually in the wintertime. Mealybugs not so much. Mealybugs usually come in with ants, so if you get ants in the wintertime, then you might get mealybugs, but mainly it's going to be spider mites and thrips. Thrips probably came in earlier in the season and now they're just running rampant in the wintertime because of the lower humidity and plants' weakness. They can take over more faster. Also, with leaf droppage and plants not looking so great, you're inspecting them more and you're looking for pests more, so you're probably going to find thrips. Another thing to keep in mind is spider mites. They like to live in the dust and they'll be around your plants and whatnot. So you'll notice them more in the wintertime because your plants won't be as full of moisture and the damage will be more prevalent, especially in a lower humidity, and you'll see them more. So it's not necessarily that spider mites thrive or don't thrive in a lower humidity and higher humidity. It's more that you'll just see the damage more in a lower humidity environment because of how the plants are. So definitely in the wintertime, make sure that you're upping your plant pest management and cleaning your leaves because the dust is going to settle more people inside, no wind from windows to blow dust off of the plants. They're going to need to be wiped down more often. I can honestly say I don't wipe my plants as often as I should, but I'm recommending it as part of winter care because we should be doing it. I understand it's a huge pain in the behind though, so one hack to wiping your plants off is instead of wiping them, just carry them to your bathroom. One of those shower heads that has like a hose or a handle, or you can get like a sink hose or whatever, and spray your plant down that way instead of wiping every individual leaf. Because like for a plant like this, wiping every individual leaf, it's kind of going to be a bit much. Maybe for like my Monstera or my Alocasia, it won't be that much. You can just take a white cloth and wipe it down. But for smaller plants, it's definitely easier to go ahead and just take care of them in a sink or something. Depending on how far they have to travel, of course. Mine have to go up and down stairs, so I'm less likely to do it. If you want to know what houseplants are more cold tolerant, you can check out this video here. It should be coming out soon if it's not out already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!